I'm Barbara Campbell. I'm 65 years old. Last year, I told my 4 children and 12 grandchildren I was done hosting Christmas dinner forever. And instead of the heartbreak I feared, I felt the most incredible, weightless freedom of my life. Let me tell you what happened. Here's my confession, and it's a hard one. I regret that I spent 40 Christmases as the host, the chef, and the stage manager. I believed my value was in the perfect production, and in doing that, I completely missed the joy of just being a guest in my own family's lives. I lost the ability to be present. You see, your family doesn't love you for your perfectly glazed ham. They love you for you. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give them is to pass the spoon. Let me explain. It started last Christmas Day, 7 a.m. I was already 3 hours into prep in my kitchen in Brookside, my back aching from standing on the tile. A military-style timeline was taped to the fridge. My husband George was tiptoeing around me with that familiar, concerned look. The house was quiet, but in my head, the countdown had begun. This was my normal. But this year, the routine felt heavier, more brittle. By early afternoon, the house was swelling with noise. All the kids, the grandkids. The chaos was my symphony, or so I told myself. My daughter Sarah found me frantically adjusting oven racks. She said, "Mom, let me help with something." I was a general surveying a battlefield. I looked at her, saw her genuine desire to connect, and all that came out was a sharp, "I've got it all under control, honey." My tone was all wire and no warmth. I saw her face fall as she backed away. In that moment, I wasn't her mom. I was a stressed-out project manager. I pushed the guilt down, buried it under a mental checklist. But the real cost of my control revealed itself at the dinner table. Surrounded by my sprawling family, the laughter, the clinking glasses, I felt utterly, profoundly alone. My mind was a switchboard. Gravy needs stirring, pie is cooling, someone's wine glass is empty. The joy was a room I could see into, but couldn't enter. And then a small hand tugged my sleeve. It was my grandson Leo, 6 years old. He held up a toy robot from his stocking. "Look, Nana," he said, beaming. I glanced down, gave a practiced smile, and said, "That's wonderful, sweetie," but my eyes were already scanning the table for empty plates. I didn't see the robot. I didn't see him. He wandered off. That disconnect, in the middle of everything I'd built, was a physical pain in my chest. I powered through the rest of the night on autopilot. The true crash came 2 days later. The house was quiet, but still a disaster zone of wrapping paper and leftover trays. The exhaustion wasn't just in my bones, it was in my soul. George found me sitting in the kitchen, crying silently, holding a broken glass ornament. He didn't say, "It was perfect." He knelt down, took my hand, and asked, "You're not okay, are you, Barbara?" That simple question was the release valve. I looked at him, my partner through all of it, and whispered, "No, I'm not." I confessed it all, the loneliness in the crowd, the missed moments with Leo, the dread that started in November. I admitted I felt like a ghost in my own tradition. He just listened. Then he said, "Then we change the tradition." It took a week to gather the courage. We called a family Zoom in early January, all 4 kids and their families on the screen. My heart was pounding. I said, "I love you all more than anything, but I need to retire from hosting Christmas dinner." I braced for protest, for guilt. Instead, Sarah spoke first. She said, "Mom, we've been worried about you for years." They didn't want my perfection. They wanted me, present, happy, and not exhausted. We planned a rotation. This year, it's at Sarah's. And that decision changed everything. It's December 1st today. For the first time in memory, I'm not mentally inventorying China. I'm knitting by the fire. I'm walking through Brookside without a deadline. I'm adding to my stamp collection. The pressure is gone, replaced by a gentle anticipation. I finally understand. I had confused my value with my utility. I thought my love was in the labor. The real gift wasn't the flawless meal. It was my attention, my laughter, actually watching Leo's face light up. This year, I'm bringing 1 pie, not 12. I will sit through the whole Christmas movie. My value to my family isn't in what I do for them, but in who I am with them. Tradition is a gift, not a prison sentence. And if you're listening to this, feeling that familiar holiday dread tightening your shoulders, I want to tell you something. It is not too late. Your family doesn't love you for your glazed ham. They love you for you. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give them is to pass the spoon. It is not too late. Let me tell you what happened after that Zoom call. Honestly, I expected the relief to fade. I thought the guilt would creep back in, that I'd feel useless. But the opposite happened. That spring, George and I started taking long walks through Brookside again, just like we used to before the kids were born. We'd point out gardens, chat with neighbors, and I wasn't mentally planning a menu. I was just walking. One afternoon, I realized I'd stopped noticing the ache in my lower back that used to be my constant companion from Thanksgiving through New Year's. The real test came in November. Sarah called, her voice tentative. "Mom, I'm finalizing my menu for Christmas. I was thinking of doing your sweet potato casserole, but is that okay? I don't want to step on your toes." I felt a flicker of that old territorial instinct, that voice that said, "That's my dish." But I took a breath. "Sarah," I said, "I would be honored. And listen, don't feel you have to make it exactly my way. Make it your way." The silence on the line was so long, I thought we'd been disconnected. Then she said, her voice thick, "Thanks, Mom." In that moment, I wasn't passing down a recipe. I was passing on the torch. And it felt warm, not cold. But here's the thing I didn't expect. I had to learn how to be a guest. In early December, Sarah asked if I could bring pies. Old me would have made 6 different kinds from scratch with homemade crusts. New me felt a panic rise. I had to consciously stop myself. I called her back. Sarah, I'd love to bring dessert. Would it be all right if I brought 2 pies from the bakery on Providence Road? They're wonderful, and it would let me focus on enjoying the day with everyone. I braced for disappointment. Instead, she laughed. Mom, that's a fantastic idea. Thank you for asking. The permission wasn't from her. It was permission I'd given myself. I hung up the phone and felt lighter. I went to my knitting basket instead of my recipe box. The week before Christmas, I had my stamp collection album out on the dining table, finally organizing some new acquisitions I'd been putting off for years. George came in smiling. You look like you're actually having fun, he said. And I was. I wasn't rushing. I was examining the tiny details on a 1950s airmail stamp, completely absorbed. That quiet focus was a kind of joy I'd forgotten. Then Christmas Eve arrived. George and I went to Sarah's house for their traditional evening of pizza and movies with the grandkids. I walked in with a simple box of cookies, no trays, no coolers, just a box. Sarah gave me a hug and said, "Just go sit, Mom. Leo's been asking for you." And I did. I sat on the floor with Leo and his new robot, the same one from last year. This time I looked. I asked him how it worked. I watched his little hands demonstrate the lights and sounds, and I saw the complete, unguarded excitement on his face. I was there. I was finally there. Later, as the chaos of bedtime for 12 grandkids swirled around me, Sarah looked frazzled, trying to find matching pajamas. I remembered that look. It was my look. I went over and put a hand on her shoulder. "Point me to the laundry room," I said. We found the missing pajama top together, folded in the wrong basket. It was a tiny thing, but as we walked back out, she leaned her head on my shoulder for a second. "I get it now, Mom," she whispered, and I knew she did. She wasn't just talking about the lost pajamas. That night, driving home through the quiet, sparkling streets of Brookside, George reached over and took my hand. "You're quiet," he said. "You okay?" I looked out the window at the decorated houses, each one its own little universe of tradition and expectation. "I'm more than okay," I said, and I meant it. For the first time in 40 years, I wasn't already exhausted on Christmas Eve. I wasn't dreading the dawn. I was anticipating it, like a child. The weight was gone. I had passed the spoon, and my hands were finally free, not to be idle, but to truly hold the things that mattered. The weight was gone. I had passed the spoon, and my hands were finally free. But you see, that freedom, it came with a price, a clarity that was almost brutal. Because when the frantic doing stopped, all that was left was the quiet. And in that quiet, I had to face what those 40 years had really cost. Christmas morning dawned clear and cold. I woke up at Sarah's house in her guest room. For a split second, My body tensed with the old ingrained panic. The turkey, the timeline, before I remembered. I took a deep breath. The smell was different. Coffee, yes, but also the scent of Sarah's perfume and pine from her tree, not the smell of my kitchen at war. I came downstairs in my robe. Sarah was already in the kitchen, her own timeline, a much simpler one, stuck to the fridge with a magnet. She looked up, a flash of that old concern in her eyes. "Mom, you don't have to." "I know," I said, and I meant it. I poured myself coffee and just sat at the island. I watched her move. She was efficient, but she was humming. She wasn't a general. She was a woman making breakfast for her family, and I was just her mom sitting there. The day unfolded so differently. I helped set the table, but when I started fussing with the placement of the forks, Sarah gently took them from my hands. "It's fine, Mom. They're just going to get used." I stood there, my hands empty. I didn't know what to do with myself. So I went and found George, who was happily being shown a new video game by two of the grandsons. I sat beside him. I just sat. The moment of truth came when everyone arrived. The door burst open with the same wonderful chaos, the hugs, the noise, and I just stood there in the middle of the living room. For 40 years, I would have been pulled in 10 directions, to the oven, to the guest with the coat, to the crying baby. But now the pull wasn't there. My daughter-in-law Megan walked in with a beautiful salad. "Just put it on the sideboard, Barbara," Sarah called from the kitchen. Not, "Ask Barbara where it goes, just put it there." I felt a sudden, sharp pang. It was ridiculous. It was what I wanted, but it felt like being demoted, like I was now part of the crowd. I wandered into the kitchen, my old domain. Sarah and my other daughter Claire were laughing, bumping hips as they worked around each other at the stove. They had a rhythm that didn't include me. "Need anything, girls?" I asked, that old hostess reflex kicking in. "We're great, Mom," Claire said, smiling over her shoulder. "Go relax." Go relax. The two words I dreamed of hearing, and they felt like a dismissal. I went back to the living room, adrift. That's when I saw it, really saw it. Leo was on the floor with his cousins, building an elaborate track for his robot. He was explaining something, his little face so serious. And I watched my son David, Leo's dad, get down on the floor with them. He didn't glance at the kitchen. He didn't have a timer in his head. He was just playing. He was fully there. And Leo looked up at him with such pure, uncomplicated joy. And it hit me, a physical blow right to the center of my chest. I never did that, not once. In all those Christmases, with all my children and then my grandchildren, I had never once just gotten on the floor and played. I was always half there, my mind in the oven, my worth tied to the productivity of the day. I had served them a perfect childhood, but I had rarely ever simply joined it. I must have made a sound because George looked over at me. He saw my face. He got up and came to me, put a hand on my back. "Barb?" I couldn't speak. I just shook my head, my eyes glued to David and Leo. The love in that room was so thick you could taste it, and I realized with a devastating clarity that I had been the architect of the event, but I had missed the life that happened within it. I built the beautiful container, but I never got to enjoy what was inside. Later, during dinner at Sarah's table, not my table, the conversation flowed easily. Stories were told. I listened, actually listened. And when there was a lull, I told a story about my own father, one I hadn't thought of in years. My grandchildren listened, rapt. I wasn't interrupting myself to get up and check on things. I just told the story. And it felt like a gift I was giving, not a task I was performing. But the deepest cut, the moment that crystallized it all, came during cleanup. I was carrying plates to the kitchen, automatically falling into my old role. Sarah was loading the dishwasher. She took the plates from me and said, "You know, Mom, this is the first Christmas I can remember where you've actually looked happy. Not busy, not stressed, just happy." She said it with so much love, such relief, and it broke me. Right there in her kitchen, surrounded by the mess and the laughter drifting in from the other room, my eyes filled with hot tears, because she was right, and the cost of all those years of happy busy came due in that instant. "I miss so much, Sarah," I whispered, the words choking out of me. "I missed you. I missed all of you. I was so busy making it perfect for you that I wasn't with you." She put down the plate she was holding and came over to me. She didn't say it was okay. She didn't say it didn't matter. She just hugged me tight. And in that hug was all the understanding I'd been too busy to see before. "We had you this year, Mom," she said softly into my shoulder. "That's all we ever wanted." That was the hardest moment, the full, unvarnished truth of my regret, not for the tradition itself, but for my blindness within it. I had confused motion with meaning, productivity with love. I thought my sacrifice was the gift, but the real gift was my presence. And for 40 years, I'd kept it locked away in the kitchen, like fine china that was too precious to use. I cried in my daughter's arms for all the lost moments, for the little boy with the robot I hadn't seen, for the stories I'd only half heard. I cried for the woman who was so busy being the heart of the home that she forgot to actually live in it. And when the tears slowed, something else settled in the space they left behind. It wasn't happiness, not yet. It was something quieter, a raw, clean understanding. The weight wasn't just gone from my shoulders. I had finally looked under it and seen what it had been crushing all along. That raw, clean understanding was the beginning of my real peace. I had to grieve the woman I'd been, the diligent, efficient, lonely producer, before I could fully become the woman I am now. And here's what I learned, sitting in the quiet of Sarah's kitchen after everyone had gone to bed. looking at the peaceful wreckage of a day I hadn't orchestrated. I was wrong. For 40 years, I was wrong. I thought my love was an action item, a checklist, a perfect golden turkey and spotless gravy. I believed my value to my family was transactional. I provide the flawless experience, and in return, I earn their love and admiration. But love isn't a transaction. It's a presence. It's not something you do. It's something you are. And you can't be present when you're running a military operation in your own home. I had built a beautiful stage set for a play called Christmas, and then I'd spent the whole performance backstage, frantic in the wings, never seeing the show. Don't make my mistake. If the thought of hosting fills you with a sense of dread, a heavy obligation, that's your spirit telling you something is out of balance. It's not a failure of love. It's a call for a change of love's expression. Your family doesn't need a martyr. They need a mother, a grandmother, a person. They need your eyes on them, not on the oven timer. They need your laughter in the conversation, not your distracted smile as you mentally calculate if there's enough whipped cream. The greatest gift you can give them is not a perfect day, but your peaceful, joyful participation in an imperfect one. So what should you do? Be brutally honest with yourself first. Then be honest with them. Call a family meeting. Not in December, not in the heat of the holiday panic. Do it in January or in the calm of spring. Say what I finally said. I love you all more than anything, and because I love you, I need to change how we do Christmas. I've been so busy creating it that I've missed being part of it with you. Propose a rotation, a potluck where everyone brings their signature dish, a catered meal, a reservation at a nice restaurant. Pass the spoon. And when you do, you must really let it go. Don't hover in your daughter's kitchen critiquing her gravy technique. Bring your one pie or your store-bought cookies and then go sit on the floor and ask your grandson about his robot. Learn how to be a guest in your own family's life. It's a skill, and it's the most rewarding one I've ever learned. You still have time. I'm 65. I spent 4 decades getting it wrong, but I finally got it right. This year, I'm not hosting. I'm going to Sarah's with my 2 bakery pies and the scarf I knitted for George. I will watch the whole movie. I will get on the floor with Leo. I will listen to my son David's stories without one ear on the kitchen. The tradition didn't die, it evolved. And in that evolution, I was finally born into my own family as Barbara, not as the director of operations. This channel is full of stories like mine, people who've lived a little, learned a lot, sometimes the hard way. If this story of a retired dentist from Brookside who finally put down her apron resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe and hit that notification bell. There are more voices here, more hard-won wisdom that might just change your perspective too, and I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment down below. Tell me, Is there a tradition that's become a prison for you? A role you're ready to retire from? Maybe it's not Christmas dinner. Maybe it's Thanksgiving, or the 4th of July barbecue, or even Sunday supper. Sharing it is the first step to changing it. If this gave you a little courage, a little permission, hit the like button. And please, share this with someone who needs to hear it. That friend who's already stressing in July about Christmas cookies. That sister who sounds just like I did. Maybe you have your own story of letting go, of finding peace by stepping back. There's a form in the description where you can submit your story. Your experience could be the one that gives someone else the courage they need. A book that helped me frame all this, that made me feel less alone in my need for a simpler life, was The Gift of Years by Joan Chittister. It's not about holidays, but about embracing this chapter of life with grace and intention. I've linked it below if you're interested. Don't wait 40 years like I did. Don't miss a single more Leo moment, a single more real conversation, because you're chained to an idea of perfection that no one else is even keeping score of. Your value is not in your utility. It's in your presence. It's in your peace. And that peace is the most precious gift you can bring to any table. Pass the spoon. Your freedom is waiting.